Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made using the June My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. In the June kit, we received a number of pattern papers and embellishments with a travel theme from 49 and Market. This month, the limited edition kit was travel themed, and the papers and embellishments were mainly from 49 and Market. And I love the way the 49 and Market style went with the travel theme, the maps, and all of the embellishments. They just went really well together, I thought. For this layout, I'm using one of the cut files that's available to all of the My Creative Scrapbook Kit subscribers. This one is from Pear Tree Cut Files. I cut it out very large. I wanted to do something a little bit different than I usually do. Usually I just use one piece of pattern paper to back all of the cutouts in a cut file. But for this one, I'm using the inside cut of the cut file and I am covering it with some strips of paper. Many of these strips of paper are from other layouts that I created, just some leftovers. I cut them into different width strips of paper. I inked the edges with some distress ink in chipped sapphire. I put some ATG adhesive on this large letter G, and I began arranging all the strips going all the way around the G. And then once I got to the bottom of the G, I switched direction and I place the strips on horizontally until I got to the top of this section of the letter. As I went along, I tried to make sure that I had all of the different colors that I'm using represented in the different sections of the letter, and I also varied the width of the strips that I put down just to make the letter look a little bit more interesting. I have all of the strips attached down, so I'm using some scissors and trimming off the excess paper from the edge. And I'm leaving just a little bit of a border because I want to put this behind the cut file. And if I cut the strips all the way up to the edge of the letter, then it won't fit behind the cut file. I wanted to overlap the cut file on the back a little bit. I hope that makes sense. I'm also going to do the same thing to the arrow that you see off to the right. I'm going to cover that with the same strips of paper. Here I'm adding an extra strip of paper to the top of the letter G. I believe that was because there was a little gap between this letter and the cut file, and this will help to fill it in. I double check to make sure that the letter is going to fit behind the cut file, and then I use some gel glue to glue the two pieces together. I often combine strips of paper like this or in similar ways on my layouts because I really like the way it looks when you take all of the patterns or many of the patterns from the collection and you put them against each other in small quantities the way you do with the strips of paper. I especially liked it on this layout because I absolutely love the colors in this collection. I think that the orange and the dark blue and the light blue just look really nice right next to each other the way they are with the strips of paper. To fill in the rest of the letter O, I used a piece of paper that I had cut off of another layout. Sometimes I feel a little stingy when I'm cutting off all of these pieces of paper that are going to be behind things, but I do end up using a lot of the paper on other layouts, but I always think you never know what paper you're going to need for a particular layout. I used the offset feature on my Silhouette Cameo to create kind of a mat for the cut file. It's just a little bit larger than the cut file that I've already backed. I wanted to make a blue mat so that there would be some contrast between the cut file and the background, and it would help that cut file pop a little bit. I'm once again using the Distress ink in Chipped Sapphire, and I'm inking all around the outside, just the places that I think you're going to be able to see the color. I put on a couple of coats. At first it's very light, and then with a second coat the color looks a little deeper and richer. I was happy with the way the cut file looked on top of the mat, so I'm going to adhere the two together. I started off thinking that I would use some glue, but then I decided that I would use some ATG adhesive on the larger areas, and then I would use some gel glue on the smaller areas. The word "let's" at the top, I thought that that could use a little bit of wet glue, but I did use some of the ATG adhesive. I thought that by combining these two, I would be sure that the cut file wouldn't pop up off that matte background. Sometimes adhesive doesn't stick so well to Distress Oxide, so I just wanted to make sure they were going to stay together in the long run. Here I'm using a mat and a paper piercer, and I'm punching some holes right inside of the white outline on the G and then also on the O. I've grown addicted to the look of stitching on cut files. I just think that it adds so much to the cut file. So now I stitch on pretty much every layout. Stitching does take a little bit of extra time. I definitely think that it's worth it, but it's just an extra step. The cut file looks really nice even without the stitching. The stitching gives a little bit of dimension to the areas on the cut file, in this case the G and the O, so I used some fun foam and I popped up the letters of the word let's so that the cut file would sit flat on the page. And now I'm starting to add some embellishing. I have some strips of paper that I cut out of the pattern papers on the bottom and then also on the top. That strip of tickets is from a branding strip, and I really love that strip because it has all of the different colors of the collection in it. And once again, I'm using the chip sapphire. I ink most of the items on this page with that Distress Oxide. I'm using 2 small photos that I printed on my Canon Selfie. They measure 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and I mounted both of them on some white cardstock. These photos were taken by my daughter Danielle. She went on a trip to the Dominican Republic last spring. The photo on the left, I believe, is a photo of the sunrise the morning that she left to catch a plane to DR. And then on the right, I think that is a photo taken from a tram at the airport. I didn't mind tucking both of these photos behind the letter O because what was at the bottom of both of them wasn't really that important. Normally, I really like the photos to be the star of the layout, but I believe this is going to be the cover page in her Dominican Republic trip album. And sometimes on those pages, I don't make the photos as much of the focal point. These aren't the most important photos from the trip, but I thought that they were great because they were a nice introduction to the album. And I'm actually really enjoying working with those photos. I haven't gone on a tropical vacation in a really, really long time, so I was really excited to have photos of flamingos and palm trees. I have a lot of layouts planned for these photos that she took. She did a good job taking photos, I have to say. I have the strips of paper attached down to the background, and now I'm adding some ATG adhesive to the cut file. And I'm going to place the cut file just sitting on top of that blue strip of paper, also trying to arrange it so that it's an equal distance from either side of the page. I had matted both of my photos on some white paper, but I was thinking that I also wanted to have a more colorful mat behind the white mat, so I decided to use a blue mat on the photo on the right, and then I'm going to use a piece of orange patterned paper on the photo on the left so that the blue would match with all the other blues that I have on the page. I decided to just go ahead and use a piece of white cardstock and ink the edges with the same Distress Oxide. I kind of like one of the photos behind the O and one in front, but I ended up tucking them both behind the letter O, mainly because what's at the bottom of the photo on the right wasn't something that I really wanted to feature. I picked out a number of embellishments that I'm going to use on the layout, and once again, I'm using that Distress ink in Chip Sapphire. That color is coming in really handy on this layout, and I inked the edges of all of these elements. I picked out a number of different colored tickets to use on this layout. 49 and Market often includes tickets in their collections, but of course, since this is a travel themed collection and a travel themed page, I thought that these would be perfect, and I am tucking quite a few of them behind the cut file. I fanned out 3 larger tickets to go behind the word let's in the upper left-hand corner, and then for the lower right-hand corner, I picked out some smaller tickets in a variety of different colors, and I'm arranging those on the right side of the letter O. I used a small ticket on the upper left-hand corner, but that ticket doesn't end up staying there. I end up moving it around a little bit. There were quite a few compasses in the embellishments of the kit, so I started off with one compass at the bottom of the letter G. I put some ATG adhesive on the back of both photos. I was finally ready to commit to placing them on angles on top of and tucked behind the letter O. And then I was thinking that I could add some more compasses to the layout, so I added another one to the left of the letter G and then one to the right of the letter O. I really like these wavy banners that I'm placing on the layout right now. The green one says explore and discover, and the orange one says our favorite place. I think that they're a really nice shape and they look really nice together as well. I love adding butterflies to my layouts, and I love the way the designers at 49 and Market thought to come up with some travel themed butterflies. So I have a large butterfly on the letter O and then also a smaller one to the right of it. I also added a small butterfly under the letter L. However, I will move that butterfly around eventually. There's a die cut. I think that's a compass also. It's blue, and I thought that that had to be somewhere on the layout. For now, I'm putting it on the arrow, but that also gets moved around. I really love the banners, so I decided to just go ahead and attach those down. The bottom banner layer just slightly over the green banner. And I felt like I liked the way all of the embellishments looked, so I began to attach them down. And I'm again using ATG adhesive because if I do change my mind, I can always move things around, which I really can't do if I use gel glue. I always like when there are embellishments that are similar in different sizes. So I really liked the way there was a large compass, which I put at the bottom of the letter G, and then a medium-sized one that's off to the left, and then a tiny one that's on the right side of the layout. Well, I always like to pop up my butterflies, so I decided to do the same thing on this layout. I cut some thin pieces of foam and put them behind the butterfly wings. I did that on the large butterfly, and then for the other two smaller butterflies, I attached those directly down to the cut file. Right now, the word Let's is white cardstock. I like the way that looked, but I thought I would add a subtle colored pattern paper to it. I cut out the word Let's on my silhouette cameo. I had to do a little bit of hand trimming. When I positioned the paper on the silhouette cameo mat, I didn't position it quite right, and the apostrophe didn't cut out correctly. So I decided that I would just go ahead and leave that part of the word Let's white. I think it looks fine, especially since the pattern paper isn't super bold. I carefully lined up the word Let's cut out of the pattern paper on top of the cardstock word, and then I used ATG adhesive and attached that down. I love adding photo corners to my photos, but since these are really small photos, I decided to just put one blue photo corner on the photo on the left and an orange one on the photo on the right. I use an EK Success punch to punch those out. To add a finishing touch to the butterflies, I decided to put some white enamel dots going down the centers. For this large butterfly, I used a slightly larger enamel dot at the top and then some smaller enamel dots going down the rest of the butterfly. I put the smallest size on the two really little butterflies. And then later on, I'm going to add another medium-sized butterfly below the arrow on the right, and I'll do the same thing on that butterfly. I'll add some enamel dots to the center. I also wanted to add a really tiny enamel dot to the center of this compass and one enamel dot to each of those sentiments. I use a blue enamel dot and an orange enamel dot on the photo corners, and that is the last touch. This layout is complete. Thank you very, very much for watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch it. As always, you can find the link to the My Creative Scrapbook website in the description box. You can take a look at all of the beautiful kits they have there and purchase a subscription if you're interested. I want to say thank you so much to all of my viewers and subscribers and to everybody who leaves me those really lovely comments. I just want you to know I appreciate all of it. I hope that everybody has a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.